Hello, and welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Listen, today we are tackling something massive. We are looking at what principal examiner reports consistently highlight as literally one of the most notoriously misunderstood, high-stakes areas in the entire Cambridge AS and A-Level Accounting 9706 syllabus. I'm talking about the earnings per share, or EPS calculation. Now, if you're a student sitting for this exam, you already know this topic can feel like a total minefield. You look at the paper, and it feels like one wrong step, and boom, your entire calculation falls apart and your marks just vanish. But here's the good news, and I want you to hear this loud and clear. We are going to fix that right now, today. In this session, I am not just going to read you textbook definitions. No way. I'm going to give you an exclusive insider strategy directly derived from real examiner insights. We're going to fundamentally transform how you approach these calculations. Imagine two archetypal students we see every year. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Alex is highly technical, right? He excels at memorizing formulas and facts, but completely freezes on open-ended evaluations. Then you have Sam. Sam is a creative thinker, strong at arguments, but struggles with structural precision and managing time. Throughout this explainer, we're going to see exactly where both Alex and Sam lose marks, and how you can combine their strengths to build an impenetrable strategy. Let's get started.
So let's start with a really high-stakes central question. Why do students consistently lose marks on EPS calculations year after year? You might be sitting there thinking, well, it's because the math is just too hard, or the formulas are way too complex to memorize under pressure. But honestly, that is actually not it. Actually, scratch that, it's not even close to the main issue. The real trap, the absolute pitfall where the vast majority of candidates stumble, is the failure to correctly interpret complex text and data. Think about it. The examiners aren't just testing your ability to blindly punch numbers into a calculator like a robot. They are actively testing your higher-order data interpretation skills. Can you extract the right numbers from intricate, confusing texts and multi-layered tables? Can you interpret the hidden relationships between those numbers? And most importantly, can you draw evidence-based conclusions from them? That is the real test. When Alex goes into the exam room, he just looks for numbers to plug into his memorized formula, ignoring the subtle contextual clues in the text. And because of that, he loses the highest tariff marks. We have to change that mindset entirely.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is your ultimate masterclass syllabus to unlock those top-tier marking bands. We're going to cover Section 1, Core Principles, Section 2, the Technical Methodology, Section 3, Critical Examiner Warnings, and finally, Section 4, Evaluative Thinking. Let's keep moving.
Section 1. Mastering Core Accounting Principles.
Now, when it comes to EPS calculations, the academic benchmarks are incredibly strict. Cambridge isn't just looking for a superficial understanding of a dozen different topics. They don't want you to just memorize a shallow breadth of facts. They explicitly want analytical depth. The assessment framework heavily prioritizes logical, structured reasoning. You need to prove to the examiner that you understand the why behind the numbers, not just the what. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Look at this quote directly from the Cambridge Assessment Framework on the screen. It says, "Top-performing students exhibit connected conceptual understanding transferable to unfamiliar contexts." So what does this all mean for you in the exam hall? It tells us that examiners reward logical, structured, and evidence-based reasoning above literally everything else. They want to see that you have a fundamental, rock-solid grasp of the conceptual framework of EPS, and they want to see that you can apply it systematically, even when question 4 throws a completely new scenario or a totally unfamiliar business context at you. If you actually understand the core concepts, if you have that connected understanding, no curveball the examiner throws can strike you out. You won't panic when the scenario looks different from your practice papers because the underlying conceptual logic never changes.
Section 2. The Systematic Technical Methodology.
Okay, moving into the practical phase. To secure those marks, you absolutely have to show your methodology. This is so crucial. Cambridge awards what we call method marks. This means the examiner rewards the process, not just the final number. Look, in Cambridge accounting, if you just scribble down a final EPS figure at the bottom of the page and it happens to be slightly off because you made one tiny silly math error under pressure, you lose everything. 0 marks for that section. But if you show your methodology clearly, you capture method marks every single step of the way, even if the final number isn't perfectly right. Here is the rigorous, standardized sequence required to successfully process any complex EPS problem. Step 1. Identify the key elements from the provided texts or tables. This is where you pause, read actively, and isolate exactly what data points matter. Step 2. Apply the relevant accounting principles. Don't just do math. Apply the specific accounting rule that governs the context. Step 3. Execute your analysis with crystal clear working. You need to show the examiner exactly what your brain is doing on the paper. Spell it out for them.
Step 4. Verify your results for reasonableness. Ask yourself, does this EPS number actually make sense for this company's scale? And Step 5. Present it all in the proper format. If you memorize this exact 5-step sequence and rigorously apply it to every single practice question you do, it's like building an impenetrable fortress around your grade. You stop leaking those easily preventable lost marks. And speaking of that final step, presentation, I really need to emphasize this. Presentation conventions are non-negotiable. We're talking about proper headings, correct terminology, appropriate formats, and clear annotation. Now, a lot of students, maybe students like our creative thinker Sam, might brush this off. Sam might say, well, the math is right. Who cares if I didn't underline the heading or use the exact format? The examiner cares a lot. This isn't just about making your exam paper look pretty or neat. Strictly following these presentation conventions is literally the easiest way to secure procedural marks that other, more careless candidates just throw away. The practical application of EPS calculations requires professional skills. Part of being a professional accountant is formatting your work exactly the way the framework demands. So please, do not throw away easy, guaranteed marks just because you couldn't be bothered to underline a heading or because you used a casual word instead of the precise accounting term. Treat your exam paper like a professional document submitted to a board of directors.
Section 3. Critical Examiner Warnings. Okay, we are entering a really critical part of this explainer. These points coming up are hard data points, sourced directly from the principal examiner reports, the actual people who grade your papers. We need to set up some warning flares right now so you don't fall into the same traps your peers do. But actually, really quickly, before we break down this massive roadblock where so many students get stuck, I want to pause. If you are finding this level of examiner insight helpful for breaking through your plateaus, I need you to hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exams, IGCSE O, and A levels. Seriously, make sure you turn on all notifications right now so you never miss our weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies. We are dedicated to giving you these exact insider blueprints. All right, back to the masterclass. Let's rapidly fire off these top 3 exam traps. Number 1, using the wrong approach for the context. This is the ultimate classic pitfall in EPS calculations. A student memorizes a formula, they see the word earnings in the prompt, and they just start plugging numbers in without actually reading the specific business scenario. It's a disaster. Number 2, forgetting format and presentation, which we literally just talked about. It happens so often that examiners have to explicitly warn against it every year. And number 3, providing answers that are not specific to the given context. Listen to me on this one. Generic, copy-pasted textbook answers will not get you across the finish line. If the question is about a manufacturing firm facing a supply chain crisis, your EPS analysis must mention that specific context. If it's a tech startup, mention that context. Your response must be tailored exactly to the business scenario described in the question, or you won't get the higher marks.
Now, diving a bit deeper into these examiner alerts, a huge, crucial point of failure is key terminology confusion. Examiners frequently report that candidates mix up core definitions. And let me tell you, if you use the wrong technical term in an extended answer, your entire logical reasoning falls apart in the eyes of the marker. They can't give you the benefit of the doubt. So the crucial point is, how do we combat this? It's simple. Always define your terms before you use them in your extended responses. By explicitly defining your core accounting terms right out of the gate at the top of your paragraph, you secure absolute clarity. You actively prevent getting hit with those brutal method mark penalties. It signals to the examiner, hey, I know exactly what this concept means, and now I am going to show you the math. It builds trust with the person grading your paper.
Section 4. Evaluative Thinking for Top Marks.
All right, let's move to the final phase and see how this all builds up. We are now talking about how to unlock the highest tariff marks. I'm talking about those massive 9 to 15 mark questions that completely separate the good students from the absolute top tier A-star candidates. To get these, you need to deploy higher order critical analysis. You need a complete cognitive framework. I want you to really look at the table on the screen right now. We call this the deconstruct, solve, evaluate framework. First, you deconstruct. This is where you identify the given information and break the massive problem down into logical, bite-sized steps. You're scanning the text, isolating the data, then you solve. This is the systematic execution of the calculation, followed immediately by that reasonableness check we talked about. Finally, and this is the absolute most important part, you evaluate. This is where you make justified recommendations and compare alternative approaches. When you get stuck on a really tough, open-ended EPS question and panic starts to set in, I want you to fall back on this exact framework. It forces you to slow down, it forces you to break the problem apart logically, and it prompts you to critically analyze the alternatives. And that, my friends, is exactly what the higher order assessment objectives in the Cambridge syllabus demand from you.
Now let's visually contrast what this actually looks like on paper, because there is a massive, massive contrast between a descriptive answer and an evaluative one. This is exactly where our hypothetical students, Alex and Sam, diverge. A mediocre descriptive student response, which is what Alex tends to write, simply states basic facts and spits out the numbers. It literally just says, the EPS went up from last year, and that's it. It's just describing the math. But a flawless, full-mark evaluative response, the kind of response that gets you into the highest marking bands, does so much more. It questions the underlying assumptions of the data, it considers different stakeholder perspectives, and most importantly, it justifies every single decision with hard evidence from the text. It doesn't just state that the EPS changed, it evaluates. It explains what that change means for the shareholders' confidence, it discusses the potential financial risks involved, and it actually recommends future actions for the directors based on that specific, unique business context. That is the difference between a passing grade and an elite grade.
So what does this all mean? What is the ultimate takeaway summarizing everything we've looked at in this masterclass strategy? It's right here. Prioritize logical reasoning, systematic analysis, and evidence-based justification over just finding the final number. I want to synthesize this entire masterclass into 3 core memorable pillars for you to take into the exam room. First, the 3-step question scan. This is where you actively read the context and avoid that first major examiner trap. Second, the paragraph balance formula, meaning you don't just write a descriptive answer, you balance it with deep, evidence-based evaluative analysis. And third, the last 5 minutes review checklist, where you meticulously check your headings, your terminology, and your presentation conventions to secure those procedural marks. Remember, the process is the key to passing EPS calculations. It's the structured working, the correct terminology, the formatting, and the evaluative depth that secures your grade. The final calculated number? That's just a period at the end of a very well-written sentence.
So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up. In your next exam, will your EPS calculation just be a lonely number on a page, or will it be a fully justified, completely examiner-proof evaluation? The choice is entirely in your methodology. Crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent, rigorous strategy. You can't just wing it. If you found this masterclass explainer valuable, I am passionately urging you, do not forget to hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exams, IGCSE, O, and A levels. Turn on that notification bell right now so you never miss our future exam hacks and insider strategies. I want you to go practice your past papers using the Deconstruct, Solve, Evaluate framework we learned today. And right now, go down to the comments and drop your target grade below. Commit to it. I'll see you in the next explainer. Keep analyzing, keep evaluating, and let's ace these exams.